Welcome everybody to TruExact Show. I'm here with Brian, Dan, Eric, and our special guest today as Shark Week continues here on this show is Paul Clerkin, shark researcher. Now, Paul, first of all, thanks for joining us. You might know him from Alien Sharks if you watch the Discovery Channel. Really interesting stuff. This is going to be one of our favorite episodes to get into because it involves like deep sea unknown and things like that. So before we get into that stuff, Paul, tell us about yourself and how you got into the aquatic life and stuff like that.
Okay, cool, man. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. Yeah, so I don't know. I just kind of fell into shark stuff. It's kind of funny. You know, I liked animals when I was a kid. The whole time I was like always like trying to catch like snakes and you know, birds and everything like that. And then, eventually I decided I wanted to study animals, and I just like the ocean. You know, you have to go, terrestrial, avian, or in the ocean. So I was just studying, you know, marine biology, and I decided to focus on sharks. And I think it was my first, it was my first or second year at my lab when I went to grad school. I got a phone call from Discovery, and they asked if they could tag along on one of my expeditions. And then, so it happened real quick. And then since then, it's been pretty fun. You know, I've got to go do a lot of research in different areas, discover some new species of sharks, or work with some pretty rare species. And I think a lot of that is because I've been able to get, you know, some of these shows and do some high profile projects.
Now, when you were growing up, was that what you wanted to do? Like some people say, oh, I want to be an astronaut and whatnot. Was there anything else you aspired to be in high school and you just like said, nah, I'm going this route?
Well, you know, like the first thing, like when I was real young, I was, I just liked animals. So it wasn't, you know, I was like, oh, I'm gonna own a pet shop is what I wanted. Like, that's when I was like a little kid, because I was like, I'll just have pets like all the time. And like that, my parents were not cool with that. They're like, you know, you're not going to make any money. And I was like, oh, I'll be a vet. And they're like, no, you won't make any money. So they really thought I should be a medical doctor. So I was actually like all in to be a medical doctor for a long time, most of like my undergrad. And I was volunteering at a hospital. I worked in like the ER and birthing and ortho and neuro and all that stuff, and I would like go twice a week, and I would just hate it so much. I would hate my days off. I would I would hate getting closer to the days that I worked there. And I mean, like a lot of us don't like going to hospitals, and I found out like, oh yeah, like why would I like this? I hate going to hospitals. And so even though like I'm glad that there's people that do it and it's really important, I think this is a really important volunteership for me, because I found out like, you know, I would have put a lot of time and energy into getting like a medical degree, and then just like show up there and realize that like I was really not happy there.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't want a doctor that doesn't want to be there too. So thank you for that.
That's still something that happens. I mean, I was in like a pre-med group during my undergrad, and it's like a serious problem because people like, you know, they get focused. They're like, well, you know, I want to have a good education. I want to have like a job where I feel like I'm doing something. And people, you know, people get their medical license. It's like they're trying to weed them out now more in the interview process to make it less about grades and more about maybe your temperament and, you know, your inspiration to help people. But it's kind of a problem.
So you were always into animals. How did you make that dive into like really loving the deep sea sharks compared to a normal, say, like great white, thresher, mako? How did you really dive into that?
So that transition, you know, I was into animals and then marine animals, and studying sharks. I kind of transitioned when I went to the Indian Ocean. They were catching a lot of sharks as bycatch. They're catching them by accident while they're deep sea fishing. And they got so many weird ones, just like, you know, deep sea little lantern sharks, ones that glow in the dark, ghost sharks. They're getting all these sleeper sharks. And I really just liked the biodiversity. And then all the deep sea stuff was really interesting because
what depth is like considered to be like deep sea? Like that's what like I couldn't wrap my head around is like, where do you I know there's probably like different areas, but like what would you consider like?
Yeah, that's when we kind of all have to kind of eyeball as scientists. It gets a little bit confusing because the idea is like there's all these different areas. There's like there's the area at which light penetrates the water. That is the area where it can penetrate enough for photosynthesis. There's that area where it penetrates, but there's not enough for photosynthesis. And there's the area where it doesn't really penetrate. And that's kind of what we use for deep sea. It's just when there's not really enough light, which we just kind of, to see and stuff. And that's what we say that's at about 200 meters, which is not that deep, it's like 600 feet. But it also obviously is going to vary with water quality, how much material's in the water and how much light there is. So it fluctuates. And there's also animals that go up and down through the water column. So how do you figure out which ones are deep sea animals or not? But to answer your question, 200 meters. Okay.
No, because from all the great presentations that you've given, that was the one thing that I just couldn't wrap my head around was like you were saying, a big issue is a lot of the people who are fishing accidentally catch these fish. I'm like, oh, how deep are these really? And pretty close to the surface. It starts to be 600 feet.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the sharks are coming from deeper. I would say closer to 1,000 meters, 300 feet. But yeah, I mean, the deep sea, as we kind of, think about it as just deep, dark water is probably the majority of not only the ocean, but of our inhabitable biome.
Have you ever seen the movie Titanic?
Yeah, I've seen Titanic.
So in the beginning when they dived down, they said these windows are 8 inches thick. So if they break, then we'll be done. So I always think about that whenever we talk about deep sea fishing or something like that. How do animals survive in that environment? I know it would crush us, but what do they have that we don't?
I mean, I think a lot of it is just kind of, so if we went down in a sub, you would have to, there would be so much pressure on the outside and it would just crush the inside because that is not putting out as much pressure. But since the animals are just going down, it's kind of like their internal force is pushing out against the water pressure, if that makes sense. Yeah. So something like air is a problem because it would, compress, or a bigger problem is for when fish, when they come to the surface, their swim bladders expand. But since fish are mostly, mostly water and they don't, need a submarine to go into the ocean, it's the inside pressure balancing, pushing against the outside pressure, if that makes any sense.
Interesting. So could fish that stay to the top of the water, could they make it all the way down there, or is it tougher for them?
I mean, I think the transition is always stressful. I think it would maybe depend on the fish and the, whatever gases are in its body. A bigger issue would be temperature change, and its ability to see or swim, whatever like that. But yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. We have not done any studies that I'm aware of where we're sending surface fish to the bottom of the ocean, but yeah.
Let me know if you need help.
Just putting different fish.
I've been wondering that since 1998.
Right now,
to the bottom.
Right now, Eric's goldfish are like.
I know we're talking about sharks, but just to switch a little bit, what about blue whales? Because I know they dive really deep. They'll go down and catch giant squid, and I mean they're going. I had seen it was 200-300 meters down, and then they're coming back up, and that's something it's a mammal, and it needs air, so it's coming up and getting the air and then diving down to such a great depth.
Yeah, I feel like you guys are trying to throw me curveballs with these whale questions, and I'm a shark guy. But no, I mean, no, that's a good point. Because a lot of mammals can dive really deep, and I think they just have a lot of physiological adaptations. I forget, there's a species of seal that can go really deep, and they exhale, so there's no air in their lungs, and they can actually collapse their lungs. They have some special coating for the inside of their lungs, so they can collapse and uncollapse them no problem. Yeah, I mean, I don't know all the adaptations, but I think it's just a lot of adaptations to let these animals go take advantage of a food source in the deep ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, all right, to me, you're this is a weird analogy. You're like a Pokemaster in the deep sea. To me, you're going out there catching Pokemon that are unknown right now. You just, that's how I feel.
Don't butcher it's called Pokemon.
Pokemon.
Not Pokemon.
Pokemon, whatever.
It's a Sharkamon.
Like, why the Indian Ocean? Is that more prevalent to, like, is that less explored than the other oceans? Or you just, like, randomly picked that one to go find your ocean?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the Indian Ocean is really, really underexplored. A lot of the time, people just kind of refer to it as a black box. There's just not a lot of research, especially in the deep sea offshore. There's a little bit more going on along the coast, but that's still probably in its infancy, depending on the country. But there's not a lot of boats fishing just like the offshore, and not a lot of that information is making it back to researchers. So I have kind of a contact over there, and they were trying to get somebody to go along and see what kind of sharks they were getting, and I just volunteered to go. And then we got a lot of sharks that were pretty uncommon, pretty rare, and then we got over a dozen that were new to science. And that was just on one trip. We did another trip. We found more new species, and I also there's fish and invertebrates, and I've shown them to experts, and they also think they're probably mostly new species.
Now, how do you go about finding out that they haven't been discovered before? And how do you go about naming them? Because there has to be a fight on the boat. I know I'd want to name every one.
Scott Fish 2.
Oh yeah, so there's not a lot of there's not a ton of rules in like naming an animal, but it's really frowned upon to name it after yourself.
Okay.
So I think it's like one of those like, oh, you're not supposed to like, you're supposed to be more humble. But there's like there's like so many like people name them after their favorite bands.
Right.
I heard someone named one it was a catfish. They called it the Bollocks catfish, which is like
Blink-182
what that
shark.
thing. Right. I think there's one made after Metallica. There's all these. I mean, there's a green lantern shark, which is like obviously that's just like yeah, that's a pretty good one. There's a whole bunch of funny ones. Like I guess taxonomists get bored and start doing that stuff. But yeah, so I named a shark after the boat that I was on, and they seemed to like that.
Nice. That's humble of you. It would suck if Shark could understand us and they've already been given a name by like their family, and they're like, "That's not my fucking name." Yeah. So, how many species have you actually discovered that is new?
So I've discovered about a dozen. The number is probably a little bit higher, but it gets a little bit complicated because there are species that look pretty different, and you can separate them out consistently based on the location, but genetically they haven't diverged enough to be considered their own species.
Okay.
And there's like the opposite, where there's like species that are different. The genetics come back, they're unique, and I just can't tell them apart. I can have one specimen in each hand, and there's like no way to tell them apart. So those ones, it gets a little bit complicated because is it a species? Is it a complex of species? And we're not really sure how to move forward with that stuff. I'm planning to investigate it in the future a little bit more when I have time to sit down and study it. But yeah, so the safe number is about a dozen.
Jeez.
And so far we've named about 6 of those, with 6 still in the description process.
And who approves those?
So I mean, we write it into an article, and we submit it to a peer-reviewed journal, and it's reviewed by whatever experts that the journal has agreed to review it. They're usually anonymous, so I don't know who reviews it. But if there's going to be a genetic component, they would ask a geneticist. If it's going to be a lantern shark, they'll ask other people that have either worked with or described lantern shark species. But yeah, we try to be pretty thorough. We have like a description, and then we put in like a comparative part where we compare it to every known species in that genus and show how it's different. Then there's like all the measurements, so it's not just qualitative. It's not like, oh, it had big eyes. You can say the eyes are this big as a ratio to this body length. And then we have a genetic component too, to kind of like show that we have some DNA support.
I'm sure we'll go over some of the sharks that have been on your show. The one I saw, how creepy is the saw shark? Is that the sawtooth one? Now this one has teeth on its beak, not its mouth, right? So it's legit like a saw. how does it exist? And what was your thought the first time you saw something like that? When you actually catch these, are you like, this is a nightmare? Like, are they as scary as you think they're gonna be?
So I've never worked with them. I've seen them like in aquariums and stuff like that. One of my friends, Dean Grubbs, works with them pretty regularly, and yeah, he says they're just strong. There's like the sawfish, which are bigger. The saw sharks are pretty small. Sawfish get huge, and he said they're just like, they're just made to thrash that rostrum around. And he's told me that that they have actually like punched holes in the side of his aluminum boat.
Wow.
Ow.
I just looked it up.
Yeah.
This is terrifying. That's not
So like the one that like really like has been giving me nightmares since I was like looking into some of the other interviews that you've done is the Goblin Shark. That thing, like, the teeth of that thing are just.
You wake up every night.
Like, but like it like when you get stuff like that, like there's nothing like you describe it as it's just blubbery. Like how is that different from like not blubbery, but like just its body is different from other sharks? How so?
Yeah, I mean a lot of the deep sea sharks, they're kind of flabby is the word that I always kind of think of, and I think part of that is just to save energy. And also you just don't need as much rigid structure living in the water. They can kind of just, it's like a water balloon floating in a bucket. It's like, it's just going to float there. So I think a big part of their, the way that they survive is that they just use like as little energy as possible and they cruise around and they just, they kind of just float. A lot of them are kind of like, they have large livers and they're kind of almost squishy almost like a water balloon, and it's just they have a really large like liver that helps them store energy, but also increases their buoyancy. So they don't have to swim as much to stay afloat.
What you just described could also describe my body. A water balloon in a bucket.
Sounds like
yeah. No,
adapted for the deep sea.
Yeah, go on, Brad.
This is something that it's always stood out to me. It's something that's very interesting to me. Can you describe briefly what exactly causes bioluminescence?
Okay, yeah. Bioluminescence it's really cool, and there's different ways that animals wind up having bioluminescence in their bodies. One is usually a symbiosis with a bacteria that makes this bioluminescent fluid, and there's also a protein that some animals can make, and that's almost all I can tell you. I don't know a whole bunch about it. I know it's kind of a high energy protein that I think the sharks actually have the protein, whereas other animals will have like a symbiote that makes it. But it's a high energy protein that is pretty much like ready to go. And as soon as they need it, it's kind of like cracking a glow stick. It's all like, set and prepared, and they can glow.
Now, is it like generating some type of electricity, or is it just a like a glow stick type thing where it's like a chemical reaction more?
Yeah, my understanding is it's more of a chemical reaction, and I think it's very efficient. There's not a lot of like heat loss or anything like that. I think it's people have been talking forever about like studying bioluminescence as a way to like come up with more efficient heat with less energy loss. I don't think anything's really happened with that technology, but yeah, I think it's just a protein that's high energy and ready to go, almost like cracking a glow stick.
That's pretty cool. Now, for one thing I want to touch on, the one guy, I forget the show he does, Forrest Galante does a show, Extinct or Not Extinct, on one of these channels. Are there any extinct species out there that you maybe are looking for that you guys don't think are actually gone, that you think that you're like a Loch Ness type thing you've been searching for? Is there any one type of species that, man, you hit the gold mine if you find,
Megalodon.
That's right. He knows. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. I think new species are exciting. There's a couple of species that have been kind of not seen for a really long time. For some reason, a shark can go without being seen for, decades, and it's not really considered extinct because we don't really know. So that considering a shark extinct doesn't happen very often. I think it might have only happened once, if I remember correctly. But yeah, there's definitely species that are like hard to find that I would love to look for. I mean, there's a honeycomb cat shark, which it's disappeared for ages off of Madagascar, and is just without a trace. And that one wasn't even described until after it disappeared. So that's the project I would like, I've been thinking about doing. There's a species of shark that's only been found once in the diet of another shark. So that one, I don't even know how you start looking for that one, but that would be amazing to learn anything about that species. It's almost like just getting like a hair clipping of a Bigfoot, like you get a little bit, but you want to actually find the shark. And then, there's a couple of, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I thought you were done.
Oh, no, I was just going to ramble on about different species that I'd love to encounter.
Oh, sorry. No, I was going to say, how did they even find out that was a new shark in the shark's diet? They just found it in its stomach, and they just tested it and said, we don't know what DNA this is?
Yeah, it's one of those things. They're probably just like cutting open the shark and like running diet to see what these things have been eating, and they probably didn't recognize it. And sometimes they can, I don't know if they back this one up with DNA or not, but they were able to describe it as a new species just based on the parts of it that were left. And one really cool one is like the pocket shark, which was, there's two specimens known, and they're both different species, and they're both in different genuses, I believe. And that one was found. It was in a freezer for a couple of years. It was part of a survey for sperm whale diet, and they just found it, and it was like this really strange shark. It has kind of a bulbous head, and it has like these pockets behind its pectoral fins with like bioluminescent fluid in it. And so it's only been seen like once before, and that's a different species. And so as soon as they saw it, they knew it was something. But it was just sitting along, with a bunch of frozen fish that they got. It was sitting in a freezer for, I think, like 4 years or something before they went through their samples and found it.
Be honest, how competitive is it? Like, do you guys have your crew going out and like their other crews going out? Does it get
like Twister, like who's going after it?
Or do you guys all like root for the research? Like, oh, if you guys find one, we all win type thing, or is it like Twister?
There's two votes. Like, that's my shark. One's freaking
out. It's competitive, man. It's competitive. I mean, like. Yeah. It's I think everyone is rooting for the science. There's a lot of egos in the shark world, and sometimes it gets less focused on like, on the research. But I mean, there's a ton of stories I shouldn't tell you guys, but there's like, especially the old stories where the good ones are like, you could my advisor heard from this guy.
You can wait till we're done recording if you want. You can wait till we're done recording if you want. You don't have to blow anyone's spot up. I don't want you to get in trouble.
Oh no. No, there's like good ones, especially from like the grandfathers, like people like that have stories like my advisor told me that so and so, and like they it's cutthroat. There's actually back in the day, I'm trying to remember, there was this guy named Garmin, and he was a researcher. His old advisor like sent out, when he was applying to get into a lab, his old advisor sent out letters of disrecommendation. And it just like running in his mouth. Yeah, I know, which is like a lot of effort. And this was like before email, and he also didn't know where he was going. So he just hand wrote all these letters and sent them out everywhere he could think of.
What?
I picture a feather pen too.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
All right, again.
Yeah. And just running his mouth with like real mean language, just like saying really terrible stuff.
This guy thinks he knows about. He was the first tweeter. Yeah. I have one more question. It's kind of off the brand of sharks, but it has to do with the Indian Ocean. That I know Brian and Dan and Eric probably have some. Now, the Indian Ocean is very choppy, and like you said, it's very different than the other three, right?
Yeah.
the Malaysian flight from like 2014. I know you're not an expert on this. They said it landed in it. Like, is it possible that these species and ate some of the stuff, or it'll never be found because of how choppy the waves are and things like that? If you have any knowledge of that, like your expert opinion.
Okay. Well. Okay, I'm gonna talk. I'm definitely like not. Yeah, I'm not like really qualified to talk about it. I mean, I think it was hard for them to find the plane just because there's so little like detail mapping out there, and there's so little like work. There's like not a bunch of boats out there working, and actually, I did a trip out there shortly after that crash, and the boat I was on was like involved in the search because they were one of the few boats that was like out in the way far offshore that had like maps of the area. 'Cause they map for their own fishing, but they're kind of competitive, so they're not throwing this out for everybody. Otherwise, another fishing company could swoop in. But they had they mapped a bunch of seamounts out there, so they're exchanging that information confidentially with the groups that were looking for the flight.
All right, now that was. That's fine. I just wanted to know because I know you did a lot of work out there. I know that was a curveball, but I never met anyone who was out. And that flight disappearance fascinates me. So I just wanted to know. Sorry about the curveball.
Oh, yeah. No, man, it's cool. Yeah, I mean, I just like that's what I know about it, and it was interesting that people on the boat were talking about it. But just in case, I don't want anybody to think that I know what I'm talking about in any point of the flight stuff.
We've got an insider.
He knows too much. Go on, guys. Sorry about that.
Go ahead.
All right. Are there any types of sharks found in any of the Arctic oceans, or it's too cold for them there?
I mean, you do get. I think it's mostly like the Greenland shark and the Pacific sleeper sharks, and the southern sleeper sharks that are really like more of the deep, cold sharks, and they have like a bunch of really cool adaptations to survive. I mean, they essentially have like antifreeze in their bodies to stop them from like freezing up when it gets super cold. But that's mostly it. I mean, a lot of the sharks are in warmer water. And they're in the about half the sharks are deep species, about the other half are not deep sea species.
Well, the Greenland one you were saying was the skin is poisonous. I think you were said in other interviews or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's one I'm actually really interested in because they have so much ammonium and chemicals in their body that if you eat them, you'll die. But that does not stop humans, right? So they found a way to like. They ferment it. I think there's human urine involved, and I think they smoke it and bury it and smoke it and bury it, something like that. And it slowly breaks down the toxins. If they don't do it right, you get shark sick or shark drunk. It'll kind of like make you feel like kind of drunk.
Is it because that specific shark is only eating dead animals, or is it like just it's how it is?
That's part of how it like. How it maintains like buoyancy in the water, neutral buoyancy, and also tries to stop the salt water around it from leaching out the water while being like resistant to freezing.
Mm-hmm.
How many clues do you need to not eat something? We pee on it, we bury it.
Right. If someone was like, this shark will kill you, and then they're like, okay, but what if I pee on it? You want to try it then?
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't sound any better to me.
People eat it to get drunk. I know, like in the Amazon, they lick like the stomachs of the frogs, poisonous. Yeah. Do people eat sharks to get high?
I've heard it called like shark drunk, but I don't think it's supposed to be like a fun experience. It's also called like shark sick, and I think it just kind of throws you for a loop, and you probably throw up a lot. And I think also I think people are still eating it now culturally, and I think tourists go and eat it. And I've been told it tastes terrible, as you can imagine. But I think it was also like when people have very limited resources and these sharks are very large and you can catch them, it makes sense to like try to eat them. I think they feed them to like their sled dogs and stuff like that.
I can see American high school students like, we're gonna go sharking this weekend, bro, and just
yeah,
it's a new Tide Pods.
Yeah, that's how I was gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, humans.
Yeah,
suck.
I can see that being
Humans are
a
dumb.
news story.
Yeah, humans
You
are
know,
trash.
what-
We're trash.
Yeah.
We're just trash. Like seriously, like
I got
oh, this
shark
is
drunk
poison.
and then shot out a bunch of shark sugar.
Yeah, but like this is like, oh, this is poisonous. Don't touch it. I'll show that shark. It's
Yeah.
not the boss of me. Just don't eat it. Like nothing tastes that good. Just don't fucking eat it.
I mean, I get it if, like, to his point, like, if there's no other food, then you got to pee on it, bury it, pee on it. I don't know. I don't know the recipe.
Oh, there you guys are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're good. You're good.
I lost you guys for a second.
Really quick, I want to just ask. I got a couple fan questions. Is that all right with you guys? All right, Paul. I got a couple questions here. Simple one here. If you encounter a shark, how could you tell the difference between a male and a female?
Okay, that one is actually very straightforward. They have pelvic fins located around, where you'd imagine the pelvic, and the males actually have an appendage, which is part of the fin, which is rolled up and is like, their phallic tool that they use to transfer sperm into the female. They have two, one per fin, and you can usually just see them. So it's very straightforward, especially, if there's a mature male.
Actually, I did not know that. All right, Rob. Is there anything you could compare the sharpness of a shark's tooth to, as like a saw or a dagger or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, well, it depends a lot. So, like I was saying, I really like that sharks are very diverse, and their teeth come in like different shapes and sizes. Some of them are actually like crushing plates that they use to get open shells. So it's more like, it's kind of going to feel more like a smooth surface, like your fingernail, like the top of your fingernail. And a lot of them some of them are like kind of prongy, and those are going to be just like needles. They're very much like needles. Or megamouths have like these little teeth, and they're just like a mouthful of cat's claws. It's almost like a whole mouth with cat's claws. And then Makos have these kind of nail-like teeth, but they do have a ridge on them, which kind of it's like kind of a nail with like a broken glass kind of ridge. And then white sharks' teeth they're very much like a serrated blade. They're sharp and they have just serrations on them. Yeah, I mean it's very much like a serrated blade.
All right, last one, Francisco. What's the biggest shark right now that's been tracked?
I'm not sure the big shark that's being tracked. The question is probably targeted towards white sharks, which I think everyone's talking about. Deep blue, which is supposed to be a large female white shark, but the largest shark species in the world is the whale shark, and they get up to 40 feet long, by far the largest. And I have no idea, the individual's name, which is the largest that they're tracking. So sorry, that one I don't know.
That's on him. Well, I'll blame him for the question, not you for the answer. All right, Brian, you got anything?
Oh, no, I got nothing else.
Dan?
Yeah.
Nope, all good.
All right, Paul, what we'd like to do here to make it a little fun at the end is our gun to your head segment. It's like a this or that or would you rather, right? So we each ask three
All right, hold
questions.
on.
All right, you ready? We ask three questions each, and you got to pick a winner at the end of the question you like the most, okay? So forward, a little of them are word play, since we don't like to just do the would you rather, this or that. So I'll start it off. I'll go first. All right. For 1 year, would you rather watch Anchorman or carry an anchor everywhere?
Anchorman, the movie, probably.
Okay. Would you rather swim with a sleeper shark or get put in a sleeper hold?
Swim with a sleeper shark.
What hurts more, getting stung by a bee or barbed by a catfish?
Oof. I would guess a catfish.
You never been barbed by one?
No, I've worked with them. I was on a lake, but
You should try it out.
Have you? Okay.
Touch one. No, they're pretty.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, that's my three.
Okay.
Ryan, you're up.
I'll go. All right. Would you rather swim through a school of sharks or run through a swarm of bees?
Oh, school of sharks.
Yeah, smart.
Would you rather only be able to watch the cartoon Street Sharks for the rest of your life, or give sharks the ability to walk on the street?
I would prefer to give them the abilities to walk on the street.
I would rather. That would be terrifying.
No, but that show was just not any good, and it would also make my research a lot easier. It's like
You're walking to the bank and sharks are just walking around.
But
hey, buddy, come in the bar for a drink with me. I got some research to do.
You're assuming they're friendly and they'd just be cool with it. It'd be a great thing for calling out of work, like, hey, I can't come in today. There's a great white shark just walking around my house.
We got street sharks.
Right,
I can't come in. I got to watch Street Sharks all day. All right, last one. Would you rather jet ski as your only form of transportation or go skiing with Benny the Jet Rodriguez?
Jet ski, I would say.
Smart.
All right.
Yeah. Dan, you're up.
All right. Would you rather only be able to listen to really big fish or only be able to eat really big fish?
Probably only eat really big fish.
Okay.
Good choice.
This one's based off of the shark that gives me nightmares. So, goblins or ghouls?
Just as mythical creatures, I'll say goblins.
All right.
Yeah.
And then I guess the last one, would you rather read a short story or watch Never-Ending Story?
Watch Never-Ending Story.
It's a great movie.
I haven't seen that one for a long time. Yeah.
Bro, how sad was it when that horse died?
Oh, dude, we can't even. Don't talk about that right now.
Thank you. You guys have to watch this movie. It's one of the saddest moments in a movie.
You guys haven't seen it?
I've never seen it. I know of it. I've just never
so
seen
sad.
When I was like in elementary school.
It's so sad. Eric, you're up.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to appreciate it, I think, as an adult. I also I named a shark the Falcor Ghost Shark.
Falcor.
After Falcor.
Yeah, we actually were discussing this movie before you got on.
Oh, yeah?
Eric, you're up.
Would you rather be lost at sea for a week or lost in the desert for a week?
Ooh, at sea, like in the water? Do I have a raft?
On a boat, just like doing what Tom Hanks did for a little bit.
Probably in the desert, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you rather be a ghost for a year or a ghost shark for a year?
Good question.
That's a good one.
Thanks, guys.
That's a good one. I'll try the ghost shark. I'd be and I'd just do all my exploration for a year in the deep sea.
There you go.
Would you rather have the teeth of a shark or the tusk of a walrus?
I think the teeth of a shark, probably.
Let's get in the way.
All right, Paul, you gotta pick a winner. Any one question that stuck out?
Brian gets it with a street shark.
Wow, congratulations.
And that was, as soon as when he said it, I knew. I was like, that's going to be the one.
I had no chance. I should have saved these.
You know what? Brian has been in a slump for like 6 episodes, so he deserves this one. Yeah, he deserves
Give me the W.
Paul, plug your Instagram and website and stuff, because I know I was confused with your Instagram. I know you had like 2.
Oh man, I'm confused on my Instagram too. I had so first of all, I'm really, really bad with social media. Super bad. I have like 300 followers, and I have TV shows. That's how bad I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I have one that's Paul J Clerkin, and that's the one I think I'm going with. I have one with underscores for no reason. I have one for my nonprofit. I have one for my for-profit. I have one for for a TV series that I did a while ago. But yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's just gonna be Paul J Clerkin.
And your website? You have your own website, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have just pauljclerkin.com, and I have deepblueresearchfoundation.org.
Nice. All right, check them out. Catch them on Discovery Channel. This was really fun, man. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me, you guys. It was fun to chat with you.